To consider parenting in football in the age of great scrutiny on concussions, we say good day to ESPN NFL analyst Herm Edwards, who played 10 seasons and coached 17 years in the league. Ashley Fox of ESPN.com covers the NFL. She recently wrote a column in which she said she will not let her young son play football when he grows up. Ashley wrote, quote, "Not football, not while I'm breathing." And when we asked the NFL to appear on today's show, they suggested we speak with Corie Elkin. And Corie is a youth football coach in Indiana. She is a mom. She has coached her son. She's received coaching training through USA Football, which is the organization funded and founded by the NFL and the NFL Players Association. It's good to have you all here. Herm, I'd like to ask you as a former player and as a parent, the conflicting knowledge and emotions that must be going through a guy such as Al Toon in advising and counseling his son. You know the game, but also your flesh and blood, and you know the damage it could do.
Yeah, he's really in a tough spot. A guy that was a professional football player and through the trauma that he's suffered in his lifetime so far with concussions. And remember, Al Toon was in a different era than actually his son is entering into now. I think there's more information out there for parents as well as coaches. And the important part of it is not so much the parents anymore. I mean, they understand it, but the coaches. How are you coaching football? I think that's very important. You talked about USA Football. They do an outstanding job with young people, with the parents, as well as young coaches that are in the field of coaching young people. Football is taught at a young age, and I believe this. We are all creatures of habit. What we do early, we end up doing later in our lives. And when you coach football, it's a part of a process. You learn at a very young age, and those fundamentals and things you're required to do to become a football player, you take with you to the next level. So I think when we look at how football is coached anymore in today's world, it's coached much safer. It's coached by players that understand the concussions. With coaches have to have information as well as parents. So I think it's a much safer sport, but there's risk. There's risk in everything, Bob, as we know. There's a risk when you leave your home every day. There's a risk riding a bicycle. There's a risk riding a skateboard. I mean, there's risk in life. Football, let's don't put this on the pedestal, say that all football players that play football are going to be subject to concussions.
No, but it is a collision sport. But you make the point that you feel it's a safer sport. Ashley, with the knowledge for coaches and for players, even at that, you're a mom, and you say, no way. Why?
Well, because you know, when you play football at any level, you have a heightened risk for repetitive head trauma. And I understand that you can walk outside and get hit by a car, but I would rather limit the opportunity for my son to have repetitive head trauma. You know, I have covered the National Football League for a decade now and have talked to former players, and I know what some of them are going through. There was one who was a perennial Pro Bowler who told me, I can't find my keys, I can't remember my mom's phone number, and he was 38 years old. You know, so if I can limit the opportunity for my son to be in that position, I'm going to do it.
Corie, Ashley's a mom, you're a mom. You're coaching football. You've taken coaching courses from USA Football. What do you think of Ashley's take on this?
Well, I fully understand. She's a parent that has, you know, her own choice to make for her child. With my son playing tackle and coaching him last year, I felt very comfortable with him playing the game, knowing that I had the training, the proper training, to teach him how to play the game safely, and really teaching these kids at the young age, how are they tackling? Are they doing it the correct way? There's a way to teach them and make sure that at least the risk can be minimized with a correct, way to teach the game.
How old was your son when you coached his first season of tackle football?
He was 8 years old, 3rd grade. And that was last year. We had a successful season. I really, really valued the way that USA Football had the player safety at heart, making sure that I was educated on concussion signs, symptoms, making sure that the proper equipment, it fit, the way it should. Our board members are trained in that as well.
It's obviously a priority for USA Football. Ashley, within the fraternity of sports media and football people that you know, I think your piece was published in April online. What kind of reaction did you get?
Well, I mean, I understand that it is somewhat of a hypocritical take to be, I earn my living covering the National Football League and to have this stance. I think I have this opinion because I do have access to the information. I do study it. I do talk to current players and former players. But I understand where that's coming from. And I've heard from a lot of people who are also inside the game who feel the same way. You look and you see guys rushed back from concussions.
But they're not speaking out the way you did, are they?
They're not. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult stance to take. I understand that. And but I don't think that I'm alone feeling the way that I do.
Herm, you heard Corie say she began coaching her son in tackle football at the age of 8. In just a second, we're going to give a survey that shows where people feel the age should be. But very quickly, how, as a parent and as a former coach and former player, what age would you start contact at?
I would high school,
in
my opinion.
Okay.
I wasn't involved in tackle football.
Well,
as a young
that's
guy.
interesting because, stand by, we now have some numbers and some findings to consider from an ESPN poll of sports fans and a group of sports parents as well on the issue of concussions and youth football. Steve Munion has the poll results.
How do parents feel about letting their sons play the game at a young age? Overall, 57% of those surveyed do have a boy who has played, is playing, or plans to play youth football. That number, 69% for parents who consider themselves NFL fans. Of those who aren't fans, 67% say their sons won't play football before high school. When asked what age contact football should first be allowed, the average response was 12, even though the current age minimum is closer to kindergarten. 44% state that concussions are the injury that most concerns them, followed by back and spinal cord injuries. 94% of parents who are NFL fans believe concussions are a serious problem in the NFL. But 67% say there are no more concussions today than in years past. It's just that there is more attention being paid to them now. Perhaps, but consider this. 57% of NFL fan parents say they are less likely to encourage their son to play youth football as a result of stories about concussions.
And Austin Collie is hurt. Not moving at all. Nope, he took that hit. He did move his extremities at least.
As for the hits that epitomize the violence of pro football, fans are split 50-50 on whether or not the NFL should further regulate hard hits. When asked which sport was the most dangerous for the athletes that play it, boxing came in first with 49%. Football was second at 21%, ahead of NASCAR at 17%, and hockey at 10%. And what about the man leading the NFL? 30% of NFL fans surveyed give Commissioner Roger Goodell an A or B on his handling of the concussion issue, with only 18% giving him an F. But 68% of NFL fans side with the players in their class action lawsuit against the NFL. In the end, there is some optimism. Be it the lawsuits, increased media exposure, stricter rules, better enforcement of those rules, or a combination of them all, 59% of NFL fans surveyed feel the number of concussions in the NFL will decrease over the next 10 years.
And we're back with Herm Edwards and Ashley Fox and Corie Elkin. And Corie, one of the numbers that certainly caught everybody's ear and eye in that survey is that the group of people, and it was over 1,000 spoken to, the average age, they say, Herm said high school, they say 12. You were coaching at age 8 for your son. What's your reaction to when you hear much older estimates and judgments being rendered, and there you are coaching a son at age 8?
Sure. And I understand that parents can make that decision. It is an independent decision for them. For me, I felt like I understood the game the way it should be played safely, how making sure that as a coach, you're teaching the right way, and that player safety is the #1 thing you should have an interest for in your players. So, you know, I understand that parents feel that way. You know, as a mother, I wanted my son to learn how to ride the bike, so I went out and taught him. But I made sure that he was doing it the right way. I made sure he had the proper equipment with the helmet. So with anything where there is contact involved, yes, they're going to be concerned, but I feel that with having a good understanding, parents should make themselves become aware of concussion signs and symptoms. You know, they should be out on the field, at least watching the practices, making sure that the coaches are teaching their sons the right way.
Given all that, Ashley, the increased concussion awareness, just a general population education we've seen, do you think the game is safer than what it was 4 or 5 years ago?
Oh, I think it is. I mean, and this is definitely a much different game than the one that Herm Edwards played. I think he would agree with that. You know, I was with Roger Goodell Thursday night, and we were talking a little bit about the concussion issue. And, you know, I think he's done a remarkable job you know, helping the game evolve with the rules changes that he's made. And, you know, if the NFL is doing it, then it will eventually trickle down to the other, you know, younger levels of football. But, you know, I think even 5 years from now, we're going to see a much different game, at least in the National Football League.
Herm, do you think that attitudes such as Ashley's, as if they become prevalent, will hurt the so-called feeder system for the game? That parents will say, no, I'd rather you have play lacrosse, play basketball, whatever, no football.
No. I really don't. I think it's a choice. I think Ashley has some good points there. But I know this about football, and it's the way you coach it. Because when you think about football, most people look at the game. It's not about the game so much. It's about how you prepare to play the game. Practice. And that's where it all comes to a head for me as a former coach, a former player, a father. How do you instruct kids in practice? And that's what we have to look at. You know, when you talk about football practice, you practice more football and actually then you play games. And it starts at an early age. And when you think about how the NFL now is all of a sudden only one-a-days. You can't have two-a-days anymore. This needs to trickle down to the high school, even to the Pop Warner, if they continue to have Pop Warner. How do you go about practicing? It's a collision sport. There's going to be collisions. There's going to be guys that hit with the helmets at times, which we're trying to take out of the game. But how you practice, I think, is very important to get away from some of these collisions early in your life.
Practice.
Because they're compound.
At the age of 8, and the guy from Philly we're talking about practice. Seems to be a Philly. Herm Edwards, Ashley Fox, Corie Elkin. Thank you all very much. Thanks for joining us outside the lines. And Monday, our series Football at a Crossroads continues with the specter of playing.